know me, mom of four who lost 120 pounds about 8 years ago and have kept it off for the last 8 years. Definitely back on this journey a little bit though. Gained over 30 pounds last year and I'm back to like getting it together. But you've also, if you've been here for a while, you hear me speaking often about the knee pain I've had. I played basketball as a kid all the way through to college and also held quite a bit of weight for so long that my knees took the brunt of it, right? And so today, I have here an expert in this area. We're going to be talking about the three best exercises for healthy knees. So, how do we overcome that knee pain that we've been suffering through for so long, especially as we're getting into our 40s and above that, right? These knees have been working for quite some time. So, we need to strengthen them back up. So, I want to welcome Isaac Ho. Hey, Isaac, how you doing?
Hey, Ileka. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get into it because so many of my viewers here, especially, really struggle with knee pain. It's
Mm.
a constant conversation. Of course, there's back issues and things like that, but knees come up more than anything, whether it be arthritis in the knees, bone to bone, all those different things. And I know you. This is something you're really passionate about.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm excited to help everyone. And if you're watching this and you're having knee pain, then this is exactly the right live for you. And a lot of times, maybe you're having knee pain and you have it going upstairs, you have it going downstairs, you have it going down on a hike. You could have it on certain exercises trying to work out. And I think as a trainer and a therapist, one of the things I see with knee pain is that a lot of people don't really understand how you're supposed to take care of the knee, right? So, what we're going to start with is what are the three biggest mistakes that people have made? Now, I will also say that one of the things that is really present to me is that if you are trying to go on this journey of healing your knee, you probably have tried a lot of things. So you may have tried physical therapy, you may have tried stretching, you may be squatting and lunging, you may be doing exercises to try to strengthen the knee. So if you've tried all that and your knee still hurts, then this is the right training for you.
Yes, I've tried.
Because what you tried all that. Okay, that's what most people that come to me that hire me, they have tried all that and they're like, "Okay, it's not working." And I've maxed out all my physical therapy.
Mhm.
I've even cash paid physical therapy and my knee
Right.
still is not better. And so ultimately they look at getting a knee replacement and they want to know, is there anything that I should do with my knee before I get the knee replacement if I absolutely have to. And so I've had quite a few clients come to me in that position where their doctor said, "Hey, try some exercise or get a knee replacement." And we've been able to help them not get a knee replacement. So that's what I'm going to teach you today, things that are different than probably what you've learned in the past. Cool. So let's preface. We're going to start with the top three mistakes that people make. I'm going to go over those and why they are knee exploders.
Mm.
And then I'm going to go over the fit knee model. And I'm going to give you an example of an exercise. Now, whenever I go over a model, of course, it's going to be individualized to you because you may have, like Alika, playing basketball, you may have just busted up your meniscus, right? And so I have a model here. And it's really important, like if you're trying to fix your knee to really understand what's going on. But the
Oh.
meniscus is basically these cushion pads, okay? So if you have kind of busted up these cushion pads, usually there's no surgery for that unless you actually tear a piece of it and it keeps catching. Okay, then
Mhm.
it can cause swelling and all these things. So, for example, one of my good friends, he's an orthopedic physical therapy specialist. He's been doing basically, if you ever have any knee surgery, he's the guy who would rehab you after. He's been doing
Mhm.
that for almost 30 years. And
Yeah.
so we talk a lot about like what actually gets a knee healthy and when maybe a surgery makes sense versus
Mm.
when you don't. Now, ultimately, you and your doctor are going to make the decision. Your doctor can't make you do anything that you don't want to. So if you're
Right.
watching this, you probably hope that no one's going to get a scalpel out and go into your knee.
Yeah.
So if that's your hope, then this is the right training for you. So
You
let's
know
dive
what?
right in.
Real quick, Isaac, it's
Yeah.
so funny you mention that because literally what you're showing me, like this
Mm,
is super cool for me because my husband experienced this last year and
mm,
they were trying to get him to do a surgery and he felt like he didn't want to go through a surgery for you because sometimes when you get the surgery, it never fully comes all the way back. So he
hmm
decided do it and really got deep into some like knee work and physical therapy and chiropractor and all kinds. I don't even know what he did, but his knee's better, but it's still not 100%. So I'm excited to send this replay to him too so he can know some of the three best.
it probably be helpful for him. Yeah, and I see that a lot, like people that have the surgery. And so one of the things a lot of physical therapists don't do is they don't actually see you a year after you've had your knee surgery. So
Yeah.
they actually think your knee is great, but they don't know how you're doing living with it. Does that make sense? Your husband probably experienced it. So after physical therapy, he's like, dang, my knee's still off. So then he's
Right.
looking for other people to work with. That's usually what I see. Most of the time, the physical therapist that you're working with, unless there's something kind of really wrong with it, they will get like the expected restoration. And if they
Yeah.
don't, of course, then they just send you back to the surgeon. So that's kind of like the surgery talk of things. But we're going to talk about the either you've had the surgery and it's still not right, or you're trying not to have the surgery. Then this training is going to be very very helpful for you. So the first mistake that people don't seem to realize when they have a knee problem is what pain is. So if you're having pain in your knee, then one of the things you need to do is not do what's causing the pain. Now I know that sounds like maybe obvious, but some people are like, oh, should I just keep like doing stuff on my knee because it'll get stronger? And so they don't really understand the phases of healing. So whatever kind of protocol you're on for healing your knee. Now, if you just had surgery and your physical therapist is overseeing it, then that's different because they may be needing to break up scar tissue and there's so much inflammation. They're going to decide when you should be pushing and when you shouldn't. But if
Right.
you're like, I'm just walking around this hurt knee, should I just be doing exercises and they hurt? Answer is no. Okay. So don't seek pain in your knee training. That mistake also goes along with the second mistake, which is going through too much range of motion on your knee. So what a
Ooh.
lot of people don't realize about the knee when they squat, when they lunge, they do these movements and they're like, I want to have a healthier knee, is a lot of times on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, you see all these knee mobility drills. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people, if your knee has a tear in it, it doesn't need more mobility. Okay. Because you don't want to stretch a tear. And so, sorry
Oh.
there, my joint on my tripod.
It
Let me tighten it for you.
was
Hopefully
trying to get over
it'll
here.
behave. Yeah, it was showing you what happens to your knee if you have a tear and you keep stretching it.
Right.
Okay. So the range of motion. So let me show you what I mean by that. So range of motion is a huge thing. So the knee is connected to the hip. This is kind of like the song that you always hear. And so if you are trying to just get your knee to go into a deep squat or a lunge, but you don't have the range of motion through the body here, you're going to have to either get it from your back or you're going to have to get it by cranking the knee in some kind of position it doesn't want to go to. And so most knee injuries in the first place that I see, if they're non-contact, which means someone didn't tackle you or you
Right.
didn't fall on a snowboard or something, they happen because the person didn't have the motion in the first place and they force their body into it. So an example of this is I'll see a lot of people that have been training on programs and they'll do leg press squats, all these kind of things, and they don't have the range of motion to actually do it, so their knee explodes. Then they
Yeah.
start having knee issues, so they're like, okay, I just tried to work through it once or twice. Now it's bad enough that I decided not to work through it, so what should I do? And so that is an example of someone who didn't have the range of motion, was going through the motion, the body had to get it somewhere, maybe their knee kind of exploded. Okay. So the second mistake they make is just not really realizing that gym equipment and office equipment, they're not really set up to accommodate your body.
Mm.
And I've got to retighten this because there's a ball bearing on here. Okay, cool.
But you know what?
Not
That makes
really.
because how could it be set up to accommodate your body when there's a million types of bodies? You know?
Yeah,
Or
well, it's a height problem for a lot of people. Okay, and so if like I have a client that's 5'1" right now who's trying to train on regular commercial equipment, and every time she sits on the equipment, it's like doesn't work for her, doesn't work
right.
for her at all. And I'll look at the shape of her spine, I'll look at her hip measurements, and I'm like, wow, you are literally like floating in order to get this, like my
Exactly.
like my tripod here. And you know what it is? Is let me unplug this power cable because I think it's pulling on the ball bearing, and so
Okay.
it's getting a little torqued. So
But
one of the things I do with all my clients is I do an ergonomic assessment. So I want to see how much range of motion they have. So what
mm,
that means is if the hip and the knee work together, when
mm,
I'm sitting, you have to actually bring your leg up to sit at parallel.
mhm.
So if you ever notice, it's way more comfortable to sit in a big SUV than it is in a sports car. I think
Yeah.
everyone's experienced that. The reason why that happens is because to sit in a sports car, you have to do this. It's so
Oh,
low,
yeah.
right? You have to climb into it and squat. To sit in a truck, you climb up into it and your legs only bent this much.
Yeah. Yep.
Does that make sense? And so that range of motion that someone may not have, if they're squatting or they're sitting all day, they're doing any of these things, it actually, there's not enough motion here. And so they have to twist their body to get it.
Mhm.
And that twisting can create over time overuse. Makes sense, right? So if you play too much basketball and you're always cutting left to right, these kind of things, you create overuse, and that's how you wear things down. So they
Yeah.
create their own overuse patterns wearing it down. So that's the second biggest mistake is not really understanding how to measure things. That's one of the things we have to do. and then put people in the right position so they feel better. And I've had lots of people with chronic back pain, knee pain, and we just change how they sit and where they're sitting through the day, and their pain goes away like 80%. We don't even have to do exercises. So that's one thing you might consider with big mistakes. Um, third biggest mistake, looking at my notes, is balance is off. Okay, and that's what we're going to talk a lot about in the fit knee model. Is if your weight is all the way here, and you see this, if you ever see people with their knees locked out when they stand, and you
Yeah.
see what I call pancake butt, where the butt's just super flat because the person's like this all the time.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
so that just make your butt flat. So a lot of fit people with flat butts, it's because they just shove their pelvis
Ooh,
here and they got this sway back thing. Okay, so what that
yeah.
looks like on the model is you actually just lock your knees out and throw yourself here. Well, if
Yeah.
all my center of my balance is here, my knee has to hold me from just falling. Make
Yeah.
sense? Okay,
Yeah.
so if your center of balance is off, you're just going to have chronic knee issues
Yeah. But
because
that,
your whole body is shoving.
right. Wouldn't that hurt your back too? Just like leaning in on
Usually they have both, but people like that don't move their back very much. Okay,
uh,
because it's already compressed, so the body knows better. But those
mhm.
people usually they try to go do something, especially dishes. And so if they're shoved forward like this and they can't shove backwards, they're like, "Yeah, my back hurts all the time when I do dishes." So I just tell my wife she has to do the dishes, something like that. Some excuse that your partner's probably made. And this
Right.
is normal, by the way, because you have to think we are moving forward through life all the time. And so your
Mhm.
body gets these strategies and basically tightens itself to help you move forward. So if you don't
Yeah.
move in different directions in an intelligent way, if you move in different directions, but it's not in the range of motion you have, then you just cheat to do it, and that could wear out something else that has movement. Okay,
Yeah.
but we have
Right.
to basically move in different directions and fix the balance. Okay, so how do we approach making this happen? I'm going to share basically 3 case studies with you. One is a client of mine who her job was she was a prison warden. So she had to walk all day in the middle of the night and make sure that everyone was doing what they were supposed to and that no one escaped from the cells. And so her knees started bothering her. And this is how we got her out of knee pain. This is the first principle. Okay. So you want to remember the fit knee model, FIT. First one, F stands for feet. Okay. So if you have shifted all your weight forward, what will happen is you will actually have this in the ankle. And you see, because your weight is falling forward, this shifts or rolls incorrectly. So if you imagine you're supposed to be kind of here for even weight displacement, what
Mhm.
actually happens is you end up too far forward like this.
Oof.
And when that happens, the foot, because it's getting compressed, actually can get an arch that's too big. Now, you also see this with high heels, because what do high heels do? They tilt you up. This is trying to be here, but see how it just naturally creates this big arch thing in the foot? And so you get a really tight foot that when you squish it with your hand, it doesn't compress because it's actually inflamed.
Wow.
Okay? With
That's why,
mm,
and that's why a lot of folks have to stop wearing high heels after a certain age. I've noticed a lot of women that I come in contact with. They've said, "Oh, I don't wear high heels anymore. I'm unable to wear high heels anymore." And so, does it sound like that may have been what's happening with them? Is that
totally.
correct?
So it probably became a foot issue because once you change the foot, it changes where the knee sits, then it changes where the hip sits and the back, and everything kind of just follows suit. So when you're young and you're 20, you just have more stem cells, so you can heal from almost anything. You could train terribly, herniate your disc, drink all night, go to work the next day. That's
Right.
being 20. By the time you have kids, like you, 5 kids, me,
Right.
one son, you're
Right.
mid 30s, 40s, you're getting up there. You
Yeah.
don't have the same allowance because you just don't heal the same.
Right.
And so by that few years of stress, then usually the inflammation doesn't get rid of itself. Instead, you're kind of left in this chronically inflamed or painful state. Okay. So exactly. That's what happens is that the whole foot starts to compensate. And so what happens is that the ankle doesn't move. And if you can't shift the ankle back and the hip back, then you're always over pushing into the knee. Okay.
Ooh. Hmm.
And so that's the first thing is we have to fix the feet. So how do we fix the feet? So hopefully I can get my tripod to show you. And this could be an exercise that would work for you. We'll see if I can get this to play along, or I'll just dance backwards.
Yeah. And in the meantime, everybody,
Mhm.
let us know if you're getting something out of this. Like if you're getting value out of this, comment below because this is, I mean, I know I'm already getting value out of this and thinking about how it can help me with my knee issues. That if you guys watch me every week posting, and every week I'm talking about, well, my knee's feeling a little better this week. So having Isaac here to share this information is game changing. So comment below if you're getting value from here.
Great. So hopefully you can see me. I tried to put on bright socks so you can see this in the video, and hopefully
Yeah.
you're not falling. Let's see if you're falling. Okay, I'm gonna set you up somewhere else a little different. Hopefully you guys can see. Because I have one of those glow tripods.
I don't even know what
And
that
so
is.
actually, best way, let's just go like this. You can see
Oh,
that foot, right?
uh-huh. Yep.
All right, awesome. All right.
All
Okay,
right.
so here's the drill. You want to make sure you can feel your heel bone. Very
Mm-hmm.
important. Okay. From here, you need to actually, to get the weight backwards, if this is the bone we just saw, you need to push your weight back and try to get this bone, while the foot stays flat, to move towards the heel.
Okay.
Okay. So in therapy, this is called negative shin angle, where the shin is actually behind, because most people are going to be standing up, and watch what happens.
Mhm.
See how when I pancake my butt, everything goes forward?
Yep.
So we want to get rid of that. The way we're going to do that is we're going to keep the heel foot flat, and we're going to start to roll the ankle back. Okay. Now, if you have a bad knee and it can be too loose, you want to just place your hands here. Just make sure you're not pushing too much through the knee. Okay.
Uh-huh.
But we want to get that ankle to go backwards. And then once you can get that ankle to go backwards, then you want to get the ankle to go forward. So, best way to see this is you actually want the heel down. You would go backwards. And then as you go forward, notice how this falls towards the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So most of you, if you do this at home, what you'll find is that this doesn't move at all. You
Oh.
don't get that to drop. Okay. And if you
Uh-huh.
can't get this part of your foot on the inside to drop, what happens is you can't go through the mid range of motion in your hips or in your low back. Okay. It
Oof.
becomes an issue. Now, we could go into that more, but we probably don't have time for that today. So I'm just going to put you right here and we'll continue. So that's the first move that you can do. That's going to help you with getting that heel to roll backwards. So just to recap, if you're shoved here and all your weight's here, remember you contact the floor through your foot. So if you can't
Uh-huh.
get the foot to play along, everything above it's probably not going to play along. So the first thing you have to do in the fit knee model is you have to get your foot to be able to move back. And if you have that high heel presentation where everything has gone up like that,
Mhm.
remember we talked about being able to flatten this part as you come forward. Okay. So that's
Okay.
the first exercise you can do. And actually, just doing that foot exercise, my client didn't have any more knee pain after that. Okay.
Wa- Okay.
Okay. So that's all she needed. But remember, it's different for everyone. So I'm going to walk you through the other things. So the eye in the fit knee model is,
Wait, real
you
quick.
have something? Yes.
And someone that exercise is usually for that person who's sitting with their butt in, right? Or stands with their I can't even do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Totally. Yeah. Smash through. Now,
mhm,
people have different styles of pelvis, like different shapes. Okay. And so
mhm,
the shape of your bones is going to determine basically how you can move. So think about it like this is if we have a semi truck and we're trying to turn the semi truck like a wider, bigger truck, it can't
mhm,
turn the same way as like a Porsche.
right.
And so depending on the shape of your bone, you will just have to move differently.
Mhm,
And so some people have more of kind of this thing going on
mhm. Yeah,
where
that's
the
me.
butt goes back and then they have to arch here to keep themselves straight. Okay,
Mhm,
so those are different kinds of foot issues. But somebody like your, let's say if you had that kind of issue where you're more like this to that,
yeah.
you may need the second drill before the first one. It just
Oh,
depends on what I usually do is I'll assess the pelvis, the back,
mhm,
and whatnot. So
yeah.
does that make sense? So it'll be different for everyone depending on. Also, it could depend. So, like, let's say you also had plantar fasciitis, okay, which is just foot pain. That's all that means. Hurts on the bottom of my foot. Okay, so
Mhm,
let's say you also had that, or it was stiff, or if we just evaluated it and it was tender. What's happening there then is that the bottom of your foot also has another layer of, let's just say, postural change. And so
mhm.
now, even though your body would want to do this first exercise, it can't because there's too much compression there already. So then it finds a third way to cheat.
Okay.
Okay. And so the body is just finding ways to allow you to move. And usually when it hurts, it's just saying, hey, I've got no more options.
Mm.
So I would appreciate it if you found a way to give me some options. And that's really what pain is. Because if you look at like what actually causes pain, it's actually chemicals. So like, not to bore everyone, but probably heard of like interleukin 6, TNF alpha, whatever. It's like these are just chemicals that your body makes and it sends it to an area and it creates inflammation. And then your brain goes, oh, you know what that chemical means? It means that should hurt. So if it
Right.
hurts, I should not do more on it. Makes sense, right? And so when you have pain, all it's saying is that there's enough of an issue there that we have to send chemical response. Now the brain gets a signal and says, okay, we won't overstress that. So if we hurt the knee, we're just going to push it to the other way and we're going to create compensation. So any injury, past injury, any plantar fasciitis, all those things, they will actually change kind of how your foot works. And that's part of, how you address it. But I usually start with the foot
Hmm.
because what I find is that is the easiest way. I can get people, and maybe in like 3 to 5 minutes, I can give them something and their knee feels better if that's
Wow.
the issue. Okay. But
Hmm.
I just usually have to figure out what is going on in the foot and the pelvis that they've created that way
Hmm.
to balance themselves.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that definitely did. Yep.
Okay, great. Cool. Now, inside, outside. Okay. So, inside rotation, outside rotation. This is the second biggest one. So, what that means is that if this is my foot and that's my shin, that's actually the bone. So, I have both
Mhm.
of these. Okay. Then, in order for the foot to do what it has to, oh, hit that foot too hard. In
Uh-huh.
order for this to move correctly, all the force from your foot has to go into your shin. So what we
Hmm.
find often is people will have really tight shins. And so
Yeah.
if I see, can we turn the shin in and can we turn the shin out? The answer is usually no. And this is really common with people with big calves. So if you're like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, my calves are so big, I can't fit them into any shoes. Usually I find that person can't move either way.
Hmm.
And that person will also have difficulties with their knee because the
Okay.
shin just becomes the bottom of the knee joint. Okay, so to show you, that's the
Mhm.
shin, that's the bottom of your knee joint. So then your
Okay.
connective tissue ligaments that people don't want to tear, that don't want to have surgery for, well, they just connect between the two. So
Mm.
as you bend your knee and you straighten your knee, there needs to be a twist through this bone. So the first twist that happens when you straighten your knee is the bone has to twist in, and when you bend your knee, the bone has to twist out. So if you lose the ability to bend that correctly, so once again, as I straighten my knee and my hip, my shin should turn in, and as I bend it, my shin should turn out. So if I don't have the ability to do one of those, and it could be different for everybody, what happens is these ligaments don't move correctly or they get overused. Are you
Oh,
trying to
wow.
test it? Yeah. And so for most
Yes.
people, yeah, they don't have it. So let me show you what it looks like to do the test just to see, because what is very common is somebody will actually, and I'll do it seated, they will move the ankle. So I say, okay, let me see what your shin does. And they do this. Yep, I got plenty of motion. But that
Hmm.
was just the ankle. So what I tell them to do is don't move the ankle. You have to rotate from here. So that's out. And the way I'd measure that is I actually just draw a line from the actual shin bone. So out,
Hmm.
in. And you can see I'm a little shorter in than out. See, I can turn out,
Yeah.
but I can't turn in as much. But most people that I find that have knee problems, they've got neither turn in or turn out.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Are you finding anything there?
I feel like I'm moving my entire from the hip. I'm trying to figure out how to move.
Okay. So that's normal. Because what that might be telling us is that you have kind of secured or locked yourself below the body because it's not stable enough. So
Right.
you're using your hip to generate the motion through your body, which may
Hmm.
give you some back issues. I don't know. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that is pretty normal. Okay. It's a thing your body has to do in order to allow you to move, because if it didn't have anything, it would have to lock you up. And then how are you going to take care of your kids and go to
Right.
work and do all that stuff? So it's just finding the best strategy that's available. And with the fit knee model, what we're looking to do is what strategies can we get you so you don't have to keep using that one over and over,
Hmm.
potentially creating an overuse issue. So that's what we do. Now, how do we do exercises for this one? So there's lots of different ways, but the easiest one is actually just what I did, where you sit there and you try to turn the shin in and out while you're sitting down. Okay, now I don't recommend doing it on the floor like I did. I did that because camera change, switch of angle is very tricky, and I don't have a whole studio setup where I can switch cameras. I recommend you sit on a very high chair and you work on rotating. Okay, and what's also very helpful is to do some foam rolling or stretching or something before you do it, because if it's tight, we're not going to have any movement. Okay, so before you go and try to create motion, you have to make a little bit of space. So you can
Hmm.
do, stretching, you can do foam rolling, whatever, and then try to work on rotating that. Okay. And
You know
once
what?
you have good, yes, go ahead.
Really, this is really cool because I love how you saying sit on the chair because when you're sitting on the chair, it's going to stabilize the hips a little more. So now you're almost forced to do it with your knee, right?
It's much easier, of course. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
rather than
Eh,
trying to fight the hip from doing it. Because for me, my whole hip
Yeah,
is trying hard to.
standing is very difficult because most people can't stand on one leg for more than 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Um, so sitting in a high chair. Plus, if you're sitting like I was, you're basically in that position on the floor with your knee to your chest. So most people would have to fold their back anyway to get into that position. There's
Yeah.
not many people that have that much hip range of motion. So
So I want to tell you, Isaac, we have Ruth Dorsey in here, and she's doing the process with us right now. She says she's working on rotating right now. So we've got folks in here who are actually doing it with us. This is really, really helpful. I definitely comment and like, especially if you want Isaac to pop back in here one day to give us some more tips. Let us know because this is a really, really cool, great information. And you can always reach out to Isaac too to see what he has that can help you with what you're doing. So this is awesome.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I do a lot of free trainings in we have a higher health, increased motivation and energy for weight loss group. And so I do a lot of different trainings like this, and you can kind of follow along and learn how your body is either working or not working and what you can do about it. So awesome. I'm glad people are enjoying this. The next thing that we have is once we get inside outside rotation, usually you would think, well, the next bone is the hip, right? So it must be do something for the hip, but actually the T is for together. Okay, so the hip and the low back, they have to move together,
Okay.
right? And so instead of just going, let me turn my hip in and out, that actually hasn't been shown to really help people with range of motion. The shin, yes, but the hip, and one of the reasons why is if you think about all the muscles that attach here from the inside of your knee, which is a very big problem for a lot of people, is they have inside knee pain. Okay. So if you
Mm,
think about if the hip is tight and it's turning you in like this, well, what are all these muscles connected to? Your pelvic floor. Okay.
okay. Mm,
So if my hip tilts this way, you'll notice the pelvic floor has one shape. If my hip tilts that way, the front of the pelvic floor gets tighter. So if you're someone who struggles with incontinence, which basically means you can't really control your bladder, you may be too far this way, pinching your bladder all the time. Okay.
mm,
So how do we influence that? Well, essentially, you have two ways you can. So, and this gets really like a little bit more detailed, but in general, here's the way you can think about it. Okay, when you do exercises that are more like deadlifty, like that, as your hip goes back, you are creating more space on the backside of your pelvic floor. So you'll see as I tilt back,
hmm.
that opens. You see that?
Yeah.
If I squat where I'm more vertical, like that, then I'm doing the opposite, which as this goes backwards, I'm closing this side and I should be opening the front of the pelvic floor.
Hmm.
Okay. When those two motions happen, they should move the hip. So if you notice, if I go, you'll see that this is the hip. If I go that way, which way did the hip move? It moved out.
Hmm.
And so that would give you turn out. As I go this way, which way did the hip move?
And,
In.
yeah.
Yeah. So that would give you hip motion in. So the rule on this and why a lot of people run into issues is they try to get hip motion through the hip joint, but all these tissues are attached into the pelvic floor here. And so the way you actually have to restore it is you have to do exercises that move the hip either out or in.
Hmm.
Because if you don't change the pelvic floor tension, then these muscles stay tight and they keep tugging on the knee. So
Okay.
they have to move together. So when you do knee movements where you're trying to turn this part in, we want to move this way. When we do knee movements where we want to turn the hip out, we need to do movements this way. And so
Mm,
squatting or deadlifting, depending on what's missing, could actually help your knee. But if you're like, oh, I heard that doing lots of deadlifts would help my knee, and I did lots of deadlifts and hip bridges and all this stuff, and it didn't, it's probably because you didn't assess if you had in or out and picked
mhm.
movements and did a movement diet or an exercise diet that would actually restore that measure. And so if you didn't, then you could actually be doing the wrong one for what your body needs, and so you didn't get a change back. So deadlift or squat, lunge, and of course you've seen lunges where people are more like this,
Yeah.
where the torso is forward. That is going to be a better movement for helping somebody get turn in again, versus doing a lunge where you're like this, straight up and down, is going to be better for turn out. So the lunge you would pick for someone that would be best for you would be the one based off the motion that you need to get back.
Mhm. Oh, nice. Okay, so then if you're a bend forward, because we've, folks have said for years, and I remember even when I was a personal trainer, I was always like, you gotta, when you're doing your squats, you gotta, be straight doing your squats versus bending over. So, but for the knee to really get the knee back, we're talking, depending on if you need, more motion on the ends or turned in, then you can actually lean forward and do that squat or do that lunge, and it actually works for that. Game changer.
Exactly. The difference in the now, and I love what you said is like you should be straight. And so if you have a wider torso like me, or maybe
Mhm,
even like you, okay, you may not be able to get straight,
mhm,
okay, because you're naturally the shape of your pelvis is like this
mhm,
rather than this. And so the only way, once you hit the end range going this way, the only way you're going to get that is to actually arch your back backwards, like
mm,
this.
yeah.
Okay. And so that's when you see those big arches and squatters that are like, I'm supposed to be straight. It's like,
Mhm.
well, your pelvis is the base. You can't get your pelvis to move. So, even if you look straight, if I measure all your hips and your shins and your feet, you won't have any motion. All you're
Exactly.
doing is locking everything and then probably pressurizing your discs at that
Yep.
point, which, is why a lot of power lifters, they can barely get their leg upstairs because they have built a lot of stiffness but
Mhm,
not range of motion. And so, a lot of them don't have great quality of life. So, it really depends on your goal.
mhm.
That's, what it boils down to. But
Right.
if you're trying to get your knee fit and healthy,
Mhm,
then depending on the range of motion you are missing, you're going to want to pick to bias either this forward position or straight position through the range of motion that you have. And so I see in the comments that Ruth says that she can't move her hips. And yeah,
mhm.
so it's not so much Ruth, that's great. And so we don't need to like turn this in and out. Turning this in and out does something else, which can keep the hip very healthy because you have fluid in here. And so that fluid actually releases into the body when you move it. So just doing mobility is helpful for the health of the joint, but doesn't really get too much range of motion because all of the actual muscles they attach into the pelvic floor. So you want
Yeah.
to get these moving here. So Ruth, you would basically want to figure out, okay, where do I need to start here? What motions do I need back? And then pick the exercises that are going to help you and the range of motions to start getting some of these postures back.
Mhm. Yeah. So this is really, really cool. I mean, we got three really great exercises to, first identify what the issue is with the knee, right? What it is, why you're having the knee pain, why you want healthier knees, right? Because I heard you mention, understanding what your goals are, right? Because that's super important. So why do you want, what do you want your knees to be able to do, right? And then where to start? Foot, and then it's the shin, and then it's basically together, right? The
Yeah,
yeah, the pelvic floor with, the in and out, right? The
you
squats.
got it. Yeah. And I try to keep it super simple. So if you can remember fit, just like Alika did, it's your
Mhm.
foot. Can you turn inside outside in your shin? And then you're going to look at your hip measurements, but you're not going to necessarily train your thigh. You're going to pick movements where the hip and the trunk are moving together. And that's what's going to get you that movement back.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely perfect. And let us know in the comments as folks are watching. So I know it's noon, so we've got some folks here, but I know a lot of folks tend to watch the lives back in the replay. So let us know in the comments if you're trying these exercises, if you felt like this was helpful. And also on top of that, also let me know if you want more videos like this in the future. That's one of my missions this year is to bring on more experts speaking about specific things for healthier bodies, right? Whether it be nutrition, fitness, pain, right? Or even self-care. So I'm bringing on more and more experts. You'll see more videos like this pretty much every week, or at least a few times a month where we're talking about things like this because we want to be the healthiest we can be. We want that longevity, right? We want to feel good and have good quality of life. And the only way we get to do that is to be pain free, to nourish our bodies appropriately with the proper nutrition, and also exercise and movement. And then also that self care, that's going to be a huge part of it as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about throughout this year here on this channel. So I'm super excited. Thank you so much, Isaac. This was so helpful. And what I'll do is I'll add Isaac's information to description. You'll send me what you want me to add, but we'll put it in the description of this video so you guys can go check him out as well. You can always follow him. Isaac, tell folks where they can follow you, whether it be
Yeah.
Instagram, social media,
Best
something.
place to follow is probably Biometry YouTube. If you're finding this helpful and you do have a knee problem, you can go to biometry.com and we have a pain-free perfect squat guide, which will walk you through how to do the assessments yourself actually and tell you which of the two squat variations you should be doing. So if you just did that assessment and you were like, I didn't turn in, I didn't turn out, okay, I don't know if I should be straight or I should be forward, then just go get the pain-free perfect squat guide because I have full videos in there. I have videos of how to do the exercises, how to do the measurements, and then live coaching of me taking someone through it so you don't make mistakes and you can do it correctly. That's probably the most helpful if you're watching this for knee pain. And then if you want more trainings like this, you can join the Higher Health, Increased Energy, and Motivation for Weight Loss group. And I do trainings in there and show you how to get everything from the knee to the hip to the neck to your gut in a healthy, higher health state.
Awesome, awesome. All right, thank you so much, and we'll see y'all. I'll see you guys soon. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great day. I don't know.